It's like case review week here at Jay's 2 Cents. Today we're gonna take a look at the Cougar Cratus. Cratus, whatever. Create your legendary case mods. Please stop doing slogans, PC brands. They suck. DK Water Blocks is a premier leader when it comes to all things water cooling. Their lineup includes fittings, tubing, tools, radiators, fans, pumps, coolants, and of course, water blocks. The Vector 2 series GPU blocks utilize a 10mm thick copper cold plate and a 3D machined acrylic jet insert for improved flow distribution and thermal performance. Every Vector 2 water block includes a high-grade aluminum backplate that encloses the entire GPU with its distinctive L-shaped profile for increased rigidity and cooling surface area. And right now, EK Water Blocks has discounted all NVIDIA 30 series GPU blocks at 50% off, making this the best time to finally upgrade the cooling of your 30 series GPU. But don't wait, this deal is only valid while supplies last. To learn more, follow the sponsored link in the description below. It's funny, one of the last Cougar cases I took a look at was actually their, gosh, I forgot what it was called. Yeah, it was the Cougar Conqueror. And then we took a look at the Panzer and Panzer Max and all. The Panzer and Panzer Max were like regular kind of regular type rectangle cases with like rounded edges and looked all cool and stuff. This kind of builds upon that sort of a Cougar lineage where it's got the crazy frame, like it's almost like it had a baby with a D frame, I guess. Let's go and just open it up. The difference with this one is it appears to already be assembled, whereas the Conqueror, you had to assemble it because that was all like flat packed and stuff, which was neat. It's just, you know, when you have to assemble it, there's a lot of extra time involved in that. So this will give us a chance to kind of take a look at the packing material. How is it packed in there? What are the customizations of this case? Because one of the things that really kind of stands out for the Cratus, whether it's Cratus or Cratus, I'm not sure, is the fact that there's a lot of modularity to it and apparently things that you can customize and change around. So the manual, it's kind of black and white with a little bit of orange splash of color in there to sort of bring attention to what it is that they're talking about per that page. But it gives you some just basic details of how to, like, you know, where the standoffs go and where the drives would mount, radiators and all that sort of stuff. This has like a beluga whale forehead kind of a look to it too, because it's like leaning forward and it's designed to look fast and stuff, which I think is kind of odd to me, but I don't know, I guess we'll see over time. So here's a glass panel, tinted, fairly thin, somewhat rounded edge. No actual like frame around it. So be careful with this glass. What I'm kind of happy to see so far is there's no etching on here that says Cougar, or in this case, Cratus, like they do on the Cougar, which is why when I did my custom build, I actually asked them, can you send me a piece of glass that's not etched? And you know what? Cougar did it. So that was nice then, but you don't have to worry about that with these, obviously. Looks like this might be a vertical mount bracket right here. And then we got some standoff screws, some grommets. So that's neat that they give you these 3M double-sided tape actual reusable tie downs, which are kind of neat rather than just having to zip tie everything everywhere, because those can be opened up and reused. So that's nice to see. Thick, actually. That's very well protected. I just want to put that out there. This is a very well protected case. So this is the top. And then here is our frame. Not that heavy, which is kind of nice. And then there's nothing else in the box, as you can see. So there's lots of foam to protect it. The chassis is already assembled, and then the glass panels are flat packed between foam. That way they don't get damaged in shipping. So good on that. Let's now go ahead and flip this upright. Now that I think about it, all I can see is a Jawa land barge. So as you can see, this is kind of a mix of like tubular chassis with stamped steel parts. Got a fan controller built in and an ARGB controller, which is a standard 3-pin addressable. So that will plug into your motherboard for both PWM signal for your fans, RPM signal for one of the fans on there, that way your system will know fans are turning, and ARGB. So that is awesome. The top, as you can see right here, does have a pre-installed glass panel, and there is our smoked tempered glass, which has plastic protection on both sides. You can see though, just how much of a gap that there is between the glass and the air. So for the ultimate airflow, if you were just like, I want the most airflow possible, considering this is technically an open chassis because it doesn't seal up anywhere, I would not run the glass. So it could just exhaust all the air to the top. If the glass is on there, it has to hit that glass and then make a sharp 90-degree bend and then exhaust out the sides. I think it'd be neat too, with these grommets right here, this gives you an opportunity to sort of, if you wanted to, kind of make your own mesh panel or something up here if you wanted. You could do that. The front, as you can see, it's curved. So this is kind of neat. Curved glass is like a kind of a luxury in the PC case world. Like, it's not cheap to do that. What's kind of interesting about this as I sort of kind of dig into it, even though it's got the big beluga whale forehead right here, it only has 2 intake fans on the front. So if you were gonna do radiators in this, it looks like you could fit on the top a 360 or a 480, because you can see you have the provisions for 120 and 140 fans. But check this out, because of where the wires come through right here, they're sort of in the way right there. So you'd have to loosen up all the zip ties and stuff that are already in here. That sort of put a tighter bend to get them to come over to the side more. Otherwise, they're gonna interfere with your rad and your fans. So you're gonna have to do that. The front has 2 pre-installed ARGB 120 fans that are obviously going to be Cougar branded. On the back right here, we do have a pre-installed 120 millimeter fan. Only fits 120. There's only provisions for a 120, so you can't put a 140 there. However, on the front, you can switch these to 140s if you wanted to for a 280 radiator, and then be able to have more airflow coming in from the front. But again, the curved glass here does take up a bit of space in front of the fan. So it still can pull in air from the sides, but as you can see, there's not a big gap there. So not exactly the most free-flowing chassis, given the fact that it is an open air chassis. The glass is nice, but I feel like this would have been better as like a mesh panel. I personally feel like. I don't like the decisions brands make these days that are like, let's look at beauty product, which in this case would be tempered glass, over functional product. So I would have liked to at least see a variant of this case where you can get mesh panel there rather than glass. I mean, sure, it does have enough of a gap on either side right here to pull in airflow, so it's not completely suffocated. But again, it's like you take an open air design and then you sort of suffocate it in this way, which is not gonna be, it's kind of counterintuitive, if you will. On the front, we do have a light bar right here, which you can see is sort of like a Knight Rider kind of a light bar. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 USB 3.0, a USB-C, and a combo headphone jack on the front. The buttons are built into the lights. So the buttons are actually right here on either side of the light bar. So reset and power, and that's kind of all there is to mention on the front. Let's take a look at the back before we look at the business end. This right here is a cover, a magnetic cover for a few things. You've got your wires kind of going across right there. When you open it though, check this out. Maybe an oversight, that just smooshes right into the controller. Doesn't look like it would cause any damage because it does have this L shape, which kind of gives it enough relief to not hurt it, but you just need to be careful with that. But as you can see, our fan wires for the front are just draped across right here. This has a multi-purpose here, so you can actually mount fans here. Everybody's now mounting fans to the motherboard, which in this case is completely pointless because as soon as that door closes, it's solid, and it's only pulling air from here and here, which is within the glass compartment, which is within the chassis. So that's pointless. To mount fans and stuff there, absolutely pointless. It is not getting any fresh air whatsoever from the outside. Don't mount fans here. The problem is, if you look at this from the business end, the end that you can see, it's pretty ugly. So if you were gonna wanna mod this, my first mod would be make a block off panel right here, or even if you just bought like a, what is that, 120s? Yeah, if you bought like a 360 millimeter mesh panel that you would put like on a radiator to protect it, just putting that there would look nicer than having these open cutouts and seeing the wires and stuff there. Make a solid panel, and you could even put like a reservoir or something right here if you were gonna do water cooling in this. It's pretty open, so water cooling wouldn't be that hard to do in here. As you can see though, the motherboard is rotated a little bit, and then the power supply does mount in the bottom right here. So it just hangs from the bottom of the chassis, which means you gotta be kind of neat with your cable management. Otherwise, you're just gonna have a rat's nest of wires hanging out the bottom, which will be visible from the side because you have openings right here. So they should have left this solid That way any wire mess that is sitting down there, which will be visible from this side, will just be visible wire craps everywhere. So it kind of goes back there, but you're gonna be able to see it, which is sort of terrible. In terms of getting those wires up into the chassis, good luck, because they don't really give you, they give you this, which I guess could go to straight up to the 24 pin and the EPS, but then you're gonna have exposed 24 pin visible all the way to here, and then EPS all the way to there. You do sort of get a wire pass through right here and right here, but it's not very big. So just, it's not well thought out, in my opinion, regarding where the wires come in. So it's kind of like this case, it looks neat, but I'm starting to just not like the idea of building this, because this is starting to look like it's gonna become sort of a pain in the butt. At least you do have some adjustability here on where the rear hanger goes for the power supply. The reason for that is if you look at it, it does in frame, if that's even the right word, the rear of the power supply. So the rear of the power supply gets hooked onto that bracket. Not all power supplies are the same length. So as long as your power supply fits within the adjustable range that you have here, and all of these holes are oblong, so you have 7 mounting positions that do have some adjustability within them, as long as it fits within that, you're good. I'm not sure what this is right here. This looks like it would be a mounting provision for a 120 or a 140 fan with very little airflow through there, so that doesn't make any sense to me. It does give you some bracketry there where you could potentially mount a pump or something. But a lot of the mounting stuff on this just kind of looks like an afterthought. Like the more I'm kind of playing around with this case, the more not looking forward to it I would personally be. Anyway, in terms of cables that are pre-included, I know we're all over the place in this case, but so is the design, to be honest. It does have 2 USB 3.0, which are a flat ribbon cable style, so I'll give them points for that rather than being the thick, USB 3.0. There's 2 of them because this only carries signal for 2 of the headers. We have 4 USB headers on the front, or USB plugs on the front, which is why we have 2 of those. So there is that. In terms of like building in this though, it would be a challenge, honestly, just because of the cable management itself. So depending on the size of your power supply cables, if you're going with like a 1500 watt or a 1200 watt because you're running, I don't know, 13900K and a 4090 and you just are like, I'm gonna oversize my power supply, those cables are thick. So getting them to fit up through here is not gonna be very easy. Because I was gonna say, you could just run them behind this guy and then have your cover sort of covering that so you can't really see it. But yeah, that's just not, that's not gonna work too well back there because you do have enough room behind this guy. At least you get 3 sleds right here for mounting controllers and or 2.5-inch drives. I feel like this is a very underwhelming case when it comes to cable management opportunities, airflow, and just overall aesthetics. I don't like this leaning design. I feel like it should have just been straight. For such a tall front end, the fact that it only fits 2 choked off 120 millimeter fans is kind of a bother to me. Sure, we have a 360 mil or 480 mil. I'm not even sure a radiator would technically fit in there because of the width of this bracket right here. It's for sure gonna hit on these wires, which you have to put a major bend on to get out of the way. That's just blowing air into a glass panel, which is gonna blow out the sides, which is also gonna affect some of its airflow. Might even get picked up by some of the fans again, recirculating through there, which won't be great. We have our exhaust fan at least, which has a nice giant mesh on there. I feel like if they had done mesh material for the top and the front that matched this, it would have been perfectly fine. It still would have looked like mil-spec or whatever it is that they were going for here. Not a huge fan of this design overall. I agreed to have them send it to me to take a look at so that I could sort of get an idea of where they've come since the Conquer case. I'm a fan of the Cougar Conquer and I'm gonna rebuild in that eventually. I had planned to do a build in there with modern Threadripper because that was my first Threadripper build in there. But it looks like AMD's kind of all but dropped Threadripper as a product. We just sort of go from their high core count Ryzen desktop CPUs now, and then HPDE or HBDT, high performance desktop for them, is just kind of moved on into server grade EPYC type stuff. There's no real in between anymore. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But this isn't it. This isn't the case that I would be using. It's unique. I like it in terms of its attempt to be something different. I just feel like there's too many trade-offs there. And ultimately now, we gotta see what it's gonna cost. $532. No. Nope. I was thinking $250 maybe, might be worth it. I understand why it's the price it is. This is not standard tooling. The problem is there's too many trade-offs. If we had proper airflow with the great frame, like the mesh design, like I said, take the one from the rear, top and front, okay, now we have some airflow going through here. If they had maybe thought out the cable management a little bit better so that you're not just having to like jam wires or cables through either the side right here, which would not be good, to be turning back. You only have these really thin grommet openings here and here to bring cables through. Maybe I would give it a little bit better marks. The fact that the door opens up and hits the controller is not a good thing. There's too many caveats to this to have it be worth over $500 as far as I'm concerned. I'm gonna give Cougar an A for effort, but I'm gonna give them like a C minus, D plus in just the overall design of this. So there you go, guys. I just wanted to unbox this and kind of take a look at it. I'm not even gonna bother trying to put any components in here. We know it'll fit an EATX board. We know it'll fit a long graphics card. We can see that by the giant openings. Cougar, good try. Maybe if you incorporate some of the things that we talked about here, better airflow, better cable management, in terms of just having options of where to route the cables into the main compartment, would be a good start. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Sound off down below if this is a case that you've built in. Are my things I'm concerned with valid, or am I just being nitpicky here? If you have not built in this chassis and you were looking at a chassis, would you buy this? Would you say, yes, $500+ is worth it to this chassis for me? Or would you just say, I'm going with a rectangle case, and that's the end, that's it, that's just it. All right, guys, thanks for watching. As always, we'll see you in the next one.